Here we are with the BSR record changer out of the Realistic Clarinette 91 stereo system. Now the platter rotates, but it's gunked up in some other areas that need to be addressed. And I can tell that someone has already had this apart because the clip that holds the platter on is missing, but that shouldn't be too hard to find around here in all this junk. So first we'll just lift the platter off. And then we'll remove this clip here, take the cycling gear off, clean it up good, and re-lubricate, and do the same thing with the center bearing assembly here. You can tell that they were starting to cheapen out even more on these later BSR record changers. One thing that's obvious is the older changers used a metal cycling gear. This one is made of plastic. And the whole thing appears to be overall lighter weight than the older ones, but I think we can get this thing going again. This was made circa 1980. I think they continued to make the 3-speed changer up until 82, and then they came out with a similar looking 2-speed BSR changer that they made up until around 84 or 85 whenever BSR finally got out of the turntable business. Okay, here we are with everything removed from the center spindle bearing as well as the cycling gear. We will clean off all the old grease with this alcohol and this contact cleaner spray, and we'll re-lubricate with this white lithium grease here. And we'll also clean all this half dried up grease and gunk off and lubricate with the same product. Or should I say with this same product, not more dried out grease. And when you're cleaning the cycling gear on one of these changers, don't forget to pop this little clip off. And of course be careful when you're doing it so you don't lose the clip. And remove these two pieces here and clean all the grease and gunk off of them, because these two pieces have to move very freely as well. Okay, we're all back together. Everything's turning smoothly. Re-lubricated the platter bearing as well as the cycling cam gear. I also had to clean and lubricate the size selector mechanism because it wasn't wanting to go off of 12 inches, but now that's working properly. Well, unfortunately, this cartridge is starting to rear its ugly head. One channel is intermittently cutting in and out and going distorted. And I tried spraying some contact cleaner up in the cartridge. Sometimes that works, sometimes it don't. Unfortunately, this is one of those times that it's not going to work. So, looks like for best results, I'm going to have to replace this cartridge. Okay, so except for ordering a new Tetrad cartridge for this stereo and doing a little more cleanup on it, as far as I'm concerned, it's done. And I'm really not going to go into replacing the cartridge except for a couple of tips that you might want to know. These Tetrad cartridges actually plug in. They have a little plug on the rear of the cartridge that plugs in. And be careful with them because they are very fragile, and if you break one of the wires, it's a pain in the butt to solder them back. Also, take note, the new replacement Tetrad cartridges that are actually branded Pfanstiehl are wired differently than the originals. So if you order a new Tetrad cartridge from a place like thevoiceofmusic.com, it'll come with an instruction sheet to show you how the new cartridge is wired, and it will also come with a current wiring harness that's wired correctly. which means you have to replace the actual wiring harness with the one they send you, unless your original wiring harness is a 4-wire harness, and then all you have to do is just reverse the plus and minus of one of the channels. Unfortunately, this one is a 4-wire harness, so I won't have to replace the actual wiring harness, but on some models the wiring harness is a 3-wire job with a common ground, and on those you have to replace the original wiring harness with the one they send you. So that's really all I'm going to say about that. You get the idea. Yeah, I'm picking up a little distortion. I don't know if you can hear that distortion. I don't know how well the camera's picking it up. See, the other channel is fine. Yep, that cartridge is going to have to go. And whenever the tone arm gets to the end of the record, it shuts off just like it should. Oh, and one other thing I'll say about these Tetrad cartridges that pertains to the stylus. As you can see, the black one on the left has a longer cantilever than the one on the right, and that actually determines your output voltage of the cartridge. I think these Tetrad cartridges came in 0.33 volt models and 1/2 volt models. Usually the 1/2 volt models were used in the lower end, lower to midline, all-in-one systems like this, and the lower voltage models were used in your better console stereos and whatnot with the lighter tracking tone arms. This one tracks at around 4.5 grams, by the way. Some of the ones in the better consoles with the VM changers tracked as little as 2.5 grams. You want to make sure you're installing the right stylus in your particular turntable. This particular unit, I installed the black stylus that gives you less output voltage, and I had to crank the volume up pretty high to get a sufficient volume. When I installed the needle on the right, we got our output voltage back up to what we're supposed to have, and our volume is plenty loud enough now. But just remember that whenever you're either replacing a stylus in one of these types of cartridges or ordering a new cartridge for your unit, make sure you get the one that provides the correct output voltage. Too low of an output voltage, you'll have to crank the volume up higher than normal. Too high of an output voltage, and you'll have distortion from overdriving your amplifier. Okay, that's going to about do it on the Realistic Clarinette 91 stereo system. Thanks for watching, and more to come later. Okay, on second thought, I will show you the cartridge installation. Got a package today from Gary at the Voice of Music website. This brand new Tetrad cartridge, along with these installation instructions. Now, one thing to note, the current production Tetrad cartridges, for some unknown reason, do not connect like the originals. The plug that plugs on the rear of the cartridge is the same, it's just the wires are not connected like the originals. I don't know why they did that, but they did. And what they want you to do is, if you have a 3-wire wiring harness, They want you to replace it with the wiring harness supplied here. And if you have a 4-wire wiring harness, which I believe this one is, they want you to reverse the left channel, the white and black wires around where they solder onto the plug back here. Here's our plug here. So all we have to do is reverse the black and white wires, and that should take care of the modification that's needed, which makes me happy because it's a lot easier than changing out the whole wiring harness. And had this been an older 3-wire wiring harness with a common ground, we'd have to replace the wiring harness with the one supplied. So now we'll go ahead and unsolder these wires and turn them around. Okay, we've now reversed our white and black wires, so now we're ready to install the cartridge. And all we have to do is plug this plug here very carefully onto the rear of the cartridge, snap the cartridge in the clip, and it should be good to go. And there it is. Now let's go reinstall the record changer back in the stereo and make sure everything operates properly. Okay, let's give it a shot. Okay, so this really doesn't like my Steely Dan album for some reason. Okay, on the first couple of records I detected a little bit of distortion in the audio. This record seems to sound better, so that may be due to this cartridge being a little bit too hot for this amplifier. And we can probably solve that by shunting some resistors across the audio output of the cartridge. That record is very well worn. Yeah, drop 2 at the same time. That's always nice. And all that skipping you heard, I think, is a product of these modern cartridges not being as high quality as the originals were, as in they're not as compliant, which means they skip on heavily modulated records that have a lot of bass, but not a whole lot I can do about that. It is what it is. Okay, that about does it. Thanks for watching, and more to come later. You can hear it's playing this one just fine.